Hello, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to an interesting time special on the Southport murders. Now, for those that don't know, I normally do political comedy, but do sometimes do deeper stuff too, with an amusing twist. Just be clear, there is no amusing twist here, clearly. No comedy, just to look at whether this could have been avoided and various people's and organisations' roles in leading up to and after these horrifying murders. And also the role that some parts of the media and politicians have played. The government has now ordered an inquiry into this to see what has been missed and if lessons can be learned, and to see if there is culpability. Others have already made that judgment and have been in too much of a hurry to do so, leading to misinformation and, as we saw, the riots themselves. More on that later. So, while the inquiry will look at so many of these questions a lot deeper than this show can, I'll have a look at what we know now. And at the heart of it all is trust, or lack of it, in so many of these organisations and individuals. Was this justified? The murders themselves occurred on the 29th of July last year. The riots that followed as a direct result of these stabbings started the following day and lasted for 6 days. So, first question, could this have been prevented? Well, there appears to be several missed opportunities to do so, certainly when you look at his past. He was expelled at 13 in October 2019 after he took a knife into school. But he returned 2 months later to attack a pupil with a hockey stick, again with a knife in his backpack. Lancashire Child Safeguarding Partnership and Mental Health Services were concerned about his supposed anxiety, which prevented him from leaving his home. And the police were aware of him from October 2019 after that school incident. And in May 2022, his parents reported him missing and he was located on a bus and reported by the bus driver after not paying his fare. He admitted he was carrying a knife at this point and, incredibly, the police dropped him back at his house. He has also admitted carrying a knife on at least 10 occasions. Following this, he was convicted of assault, possession of an offensive weapon, and possession of a knife over the hockey stick assault, and received a youth justice referral order. This is when a juvenile offender, and don't forget he would have been 15 at the time, is, if they plead guilty, given a supervisional rather than a custodial sentence, and it was said he fully engaged with the program at the time. As a result, he seems to have slipped through the cracks after then. So firstly, this.
If the public had known the truth about this guy, crazy conspiracies would not have spread online, and those riots would have been nowhere near as bad as they were.
I have to say he's right, and indeed said as much on one of my videos published a couple of weeks ago.
So Keir Starmer, now is not the time to be quiet. Now is the time to address the British people. Because if you don't, others will.
Because if you don't, someone else will. Now, Farage's point is slightly undermined by the fact that he was that someone else.
Whether the truth is being withheld from us, I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question.
He also said this on the 4th of August.
The accusation that somehow I'm orchestrating these riots, nothing, but nothing could be further from the truth.
And in October, when a guilty plea was entered on behalf of Axel Rudabikana, and so details of the investigation could be released.
We've also been told this afternoon there are other facts that we don't yet know, because the Crown Prosecution Service say they will come out in good time in court and are not to be discussed now. So, that's all right then. That all makes sense to you, doesn't it? Yes, absolutely.
Although Farage did say he disagreed with the rioters, at no stage on any of these videos has he called for calm, for those who are rioting to stop. And this is the individual who wants to be the next Prime Minister. This is the issue here. The Reform are effectively the political wing, if you like, of Talk TV and GB News, because they both feed off each other. This idea that the establishment is against you is not new, but they either don't understand or don't care that it gets amplified at times like this with emotions running high. And rather than asking for calm and to allow the authorities to do their job, they attack those same authorities, moving their target based on whatever name crops up that week. Initially, it was the police. Then it was Starmer, then bizarrely it was online information, then Labour and the Tories, then Keir Starmer again, Currently it's the CPS, but of course that was last week, so who knows by the time this video comes out. And the problem with this scattergun approach isn't just a lack of focus stopping police and the CPS from getting on with the job of ensuring this monster gets put away effectively for life. The problem is that it then feeds into the narrative that none of these organisations or individuals can be trusted, which is dangerous. And rather than trying to provide meaningful and considered answers to this horror, which everybody, by the way, wants to make sure that we do whatever we can to ensure it doesn't happen again, you end up just demanding questions, the wrong ones, and seeking answers, again, usually the wrong ones. A few examples, which I will fact check as we go. So, firstly, Reform's Deputy Leader, Richard Tice, appearing on Talk TV.
I've just been doing a bit of research, and let me just run down a list where lone terror attacks have immediately been declared a terror incident and information has been given about the perpetrator. 2016, the murder of Joe Cox by Thomas Mayer. 2017, the murder of Keith Palmer at Westminster by Khalid Massoud. August 18, car attack outside Westminster. Another lone attack immediately declared a terror incident. December 18, Mahdi Mohammed stabbing 3 people in Manchester Station, immediately declared a terror incident by the police, information given.
Bit of a common theme, this one. Nigel Farage talking to road rage in a studio, Jeremy Kyle.
Dreadful, dreadful stabbings in Southport. I'll take you back to July. You were accused of stirring up online conspiracy theories. You were called Tommy Robinson in a suit over the comments that you made. You posted a video on X before the riots broke out questioning the accuracy of the police's assessment that that knife attack was not terror-related. Now, treat me as an idiot.
Not sure what the alternative is, but okay.
You've been proven to be absolutely right.
Right. The reason that it wasn't declared a terror incident is threefold. One, the legal definition of terrorism is that it would need to be a threat or an act of violence that would follow a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. This did none of those things, hence why Keir Starmer is attempting to redefine the legal definition of terrorism, although even that seems to be the wrong thing.
And the solution the government has come up with is, I mean, it's brilliant. We're going to change the definition of terrorism. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant.
All of those examples that you gave, Dickie, all of them follow one of those misplaced causes. Which brings me on to 2. By the Prime Minister declaring that this is a terrorist incident when it hasn't met the criteria, it could be said to be giving out misinformation on the trial. A technicality, yes, and a remote one. But can you imagine the justifiable rage that this killer had walked free because of something Starmer said? And 3, yes, there is an element of not wanting to inflame racial tensions. Although not well handled by not putting enough info out there, if you put that face and that name and say it was a terrorist attack, people are going to draw their own conclusions. Again, the wrong ones.
They are so woke, they are so unwilling to say our problem is Islamist terrorism that they start...
So when he was, in my view, encouraging people to be locked up for indicating that there may have been an Islamist link, he did know that the perpetrator was in possession of an Islamist manual.
Putting out information, whether accurate or not, about a potential court case, especially as one as sensitive as this, could lead to charges being made against you. Yes, I'm confused why you're confused. By the way, the Islamist manual was in Al-Qaeda handbook. Sure, an Islamist terror organisation. The implication they are making that this is the work of Muslims is clear, and again inaccurate. He had a fascination with genocide and killing, even school shootings that were happening in America. But he isn't obsessed with America's Second Amendment. Do you know what they didn't find at his address? The Quran. Because he's not a Muslim. Which again is why this wasn't treated as a terrorist incident. And honestly, I was wondering when the W word was going to rear its ugly head.
As regards the Southport attack and the Prevent programme, Prevent started looking at me.
I'm not going to get too much into this because Prevent definitely have a case to answer here, but that'll come out in the inquiry. What I would say is that Prevent are there to deal with any person that may become radicalised. Sometimes they go further than an initial look into something, and sometimes they don't. They received approximately 8,000 reports of individuals last year to monitor. That's over 20 a day, every day. Then there's this.
And I do think, actually, that point about somehow blaming Amazon is patently and provably ridiculous. I mean, do they think we're silly to assume that Barack Obama wouldn't have killed unless Amazon had delivered him a knife? You can get a knife in any kitchen drawer.
No, clearly not. But putting things in place that stops easy access to knives by certain individuals will help. That's all. Not stop. No one's suggesting stop. But it will help to stop them having easy access to them.
It's not knives that kill people, it's psychopaths.
Yeah, with knives. Not with a death stare. All right, let me give you an example. And let's use Martin Daubney's knives in a drawer rationale. If you're a parent concerned about your son, about them being in a gang or drugs or whatever, and you're wondering what to do, you go to make a cup of tea, open the kitchen drawer to get out a teaspoon, and the big bread knife's missing. You all know what's happened and can and indeed should call the police at that point. There's a reason that we don't have mass shootings in this country, and America, which has easy access to guns, does. But all of this is simply to lay the blame of a cover-up, because you can pin that on Starmer, which they're desperate to do, when surely the real question should be, why did this person fall through the cracks of so many institutions who are all there to coordinate with each other?
I don't want those people on the streets anymore. I don't want any more children killed. Is that too much to ask from my government? That's kind of pretty much basic government 101, isn't it?
This is staggeringly overly simplistic stuff. But because of that, it's easy to fall for it. Starmer is an ex-lawyer and now a politician, ergo he's a liar.
So, will the Home Secretary accept, given what I've just said and what Jonathan Hall said, does she accept there should and could have been more openness and transparency, as I just set out, without prejudicing the trial, and that disclosing more of that truth openly and transparently would have helped combat the damaging misinformation that circulated and which arguably fueled the riots? Will she confirm the inquiry will look at that aspect of events?
But no questions on how he was referred to Prevent on 4 occasions and nothing happened. But this is where we are. The narrative in this country, by not only the right-wing press but others, is so warped, and their desperation to blame Starmer is again so warped that they've chosen to ignore the fact that Prevent failed to prevent this. I mean, the clue's in the name. Even the fact that he got sentenced to 52 years and not life doesn't tell the full story. It's a minimum of 52 years. But, as the judge has said, because of the horror of the crime, he's unlikely to breathe the air of a free man again. Quite rightly. But the reason he didn't get life is because he wasn't 18 when the murders happened, and so couldn't be tried as an adult. And guess who's getting the blame for that?
Let's make sure there's no criticism of Mr. Justice Goose, the judge. He's just going to have to use the system that the Prime Minister has allowed to continue to exist.
Despite the fact that these murders happened only just over 3 weeks after Starmer coming to power. But it's not just the Labour government that is apparently behind this cover-up. It's also the BBC, known to this bunch of conspiracy cranks as a British bashing corporation, and Sky or Sly News. Here is creepy sex pest Dan Wooden talking about Sarah Jane Mee, who was reporting on events for Sky News.
I don't know about you, but I literally feel like I've been living in a parallel universe the past 24 hours. Any time I am exposed to the corrupt and crooked mainstream media coverage of Axel Rudy Cabana, because the usual suspects in the establishment are doing everything other than deal with the actual facts at hand. And when some facts are presented to them, they do all they can to quite literally cut them off.
In my mind, had people done their job better in the last few years in relation to this man, those girls would still be alive.
A claim that was repeated by the Daily Express. But if you actually continue watching, she explains the reason for this.
And I'll be honest with you, there's no doubt in my mind, had people done their job better in the last few years in relation to this man, those girls would still be alive.
Sorry, Nazir, I was asking for my mic to be cut because I can't actually hear what you're saying. We've got a slight technical difficulty, so I'm going to ask you another question. I know you can hear me.
By the way, do you want to know where that rumour started? Raoul Braverman, or Mr. Suella, who, like me, watched it in real time, so knew beyond any doubt that what he was tweeting was a lie, yet chose to do so anyway. Who wants to have a guess at which party Raoul joined last month? Be honest, you don't need a guess, do you? It's Reform. The same Reform of which Nigel Farage spread false rumours, in which Rupert Lowe also demanded answers, bizarrely, of us, it seems, as he tweeted this out. And not to be outdone, Lee Anderson put out this tweet. So, let me be clear. I'm not in favour of the death penalty, but I'm happy to have the discussion about it. But this isn't that. It's a crude appeal to the basis of emotive responses, a way to whip people into a frenzy, irrespective of who the target is or what the facts are. And one of the reasons we don't have the death penalty anymore is because we've gotten both wrong in the past.
For 50 years, Private Eye has pretty much in most issues exposed a miscarriage of justice, and a lot of them have been murders. Over the years, large numbers of these cases have been found to be entirely wrong, and the men convicted, almost all of the men, there's a couple of women, have been found innocent. So we would have killed those people, and in some of those very high-profile cases, which involve terrorism cases, we would have made very dangerous new martyrs by executing people who turned out not to have committed the murders involved. So on a purely practical basis, whatever you think it says about the civilised nature of your society or not, I think it would be incredibly dangerous to have capital punishment back.
And we've already seen what happens when you deny facts and due process. We saw it less than 6 months ago. It is easy to get angry and upset. Those are the first emotions present. And it's easy to blame everyone and everything as a result of those emotive feelings. But doing so will not only increase distrust in those organisations, making doing their job effectively that much more difficult. It may also put some of those individuals, experts in their field, at risk of those that sign up to the daily conspiracy. And do you think GB viewers and Reform voters, yeah, let's pretend they're two separate groups of people, are smart enough to spot the nuance in talking about Islamic terrorism and Muslims?
A Muslim mayor.
British Muslims caused a stir.
Muslim countries.
Muslim stand.
Why? Because the worst thing you can do in British society is offend Islam.
It could be looking at the gradual Islamification of our country.
But the most depressing thing about this is how some of those are so willing to drive a wedge between all of us, and how, and I can't believe I'm even going to say this, but how opportunistic they are, when this should be the point you call for calm. I'm going to show you 3 letters now from political leaders of Reform, Nigel Farage, Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, and from Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. And you can make your own mind up which one of these genuinely wants answers and wants to ensure something like this never happens again. Thanks all, and take care.